Assalamu alaikum.
The topic today that I chose, I found this story in one of the books of the emotional stories, and not the story itself, but what it was referring to or encompassed was really what got to me. That's why I called the whole talk according to that single story, which was a message of a girl or a daughter to her father from the grave. So this is a girl, young girl, teenager, who died of a sickness. And a while later, after her death, her father in his dream sees her come to him crying. Now to see after losing a teenager is extremely hard. And I don't know how to explain it, I don't know how to describe it, because subhanAllah, it's not like the child was first born or spent a year or two with you. You spent 15, 16, 17 years working hard day and night to raise this child. Now to have this child die after being so used to her, day in and day out, every single action that's performed revolves around your family. Having that piece of your life taken from you is very hard. Now that's one thing. And having or seeing your own daughter that you are struggling so much in grief over her, in your dream crying, is a whole other thing. So this father saw his child crying, and she was saying, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. She was saying, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. The dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made when he was thrown into the fire. An amazing dua. An unbelievable dua. God is sufficient for me. Most excellent is He in whom I trust. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. This is usually said when in times of peril, or times where some hardship has befallen you, or someone has oppressed you and you can't get out of it. You have no one but Allah. You say, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. So the father, seeing his daughter like this, crying, and also saying, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil, he began to shake in fear. And he asked his daughter, why are you saying Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil? Who are you seeking refuge from? So the daughter asked him, do you really want to know? He said, by Allah, I want to know. She said, and what would you do to him, or the person that I'm seeking refuge from? He said, by Allah, I will get revenge for you from him. So this daughter says, now you want to get revenge after it's too late? She's already dead. So her father said, by Allah, I will get revenge for you. Just tell me. So this girl begins to say, I am seeking refuge, or I'm asking Allah Azza wa Jal to suffice me from, and she pauses. She cannot continue. And the father gets angry. Tell me who it is. Immediately, this young girl's beautiful face explodes into anger. And that beautiful face turns into this harsh, disgusting, monstrous face. The father, just by seeing his daughter in that state, begins to drip in sweat and shake in fear. And she screams out, oh Father, I seek refuge, or I ask Allah to suffice me from you. Allahu Akbar. I seek refuge in Allah, or I want Allah to suffice me from you. You failed me, Father. Oh Father, you failed me. I was your trust, and you betrayed it. Allah is sufficient for me from your carelessness towards me and my sisters. You did not protect me, and you did not guard my deen. You caused the punishment that I am in right now. And the father, now absolutely in tears, shaking, drenched in sweat. He's asking, and what did I do? After a long pause, the daughter tells him, oh father, I am in a trench of the trenches of the hellfire because of you. You neglected us, me and my sisters. And he began to try and defend himself. But I work day and night to make money and get you whatever you want. So you can do whatever you want and go wherever you need to go. This is where the daughter increased in anger, loathing and animosity, until smoke began to emerge from her eye sockets. And her skull, the skin on her head, began to crack open and fall down out of skin. Pieces of skin and flesh were falling from her head. And she screams out, is that all there is to it? You did not wake us up for Fajr. You did not say anything when we spent the nights watching filthy films and movies until it completely destroyed our Islamic morals and values. You did not stop us from spending the day in the shopping centers, mixing and mingling, laughing and joking, being harassed from here and there. But it never mattered because we were so used to it on TV, through the movies and the series. My father, you were the one who neglected us. You were the one who caused me to enter the punishment I'm in now. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the father, from the harshness of this dream, suddenly woke up, drenched in sweat, crying, and ran to his other daughters to stop them from arriving at the same fate. But my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, by Allah, it isn't his daughters that he should be worried about. Because even if he does right by the rest of his daughters, he might very well end up right there beside his daughter because he already failed her. See, in Islam, whoever does a good action or teaches someone a good action, he gets that reward of the person that he taught until that person dies. And if that person taught someone, he'll also get the reward of that person he taught because he was the one that taught it originally, and vice versa. If he raised someone on haram or left them to do haram, especially if it's a trust, then that sin that he continues to do for the rest of his life or her life will be his sin. And if he was neglectful in teaching it to his or her kids, you will also get that sin. A child is one of the biggest trusts and responsibilities put on our shoulders. And Allah Azza wa Jal does not take it lightly. Our children either take us to paradise or to hellfire. Our children either take us to paradise or to hellfire. I feel so bad, I feel so sorry when I see parents in here or at any mosque praying in the front row and I know where their children are. What are you doing? What's that going to do for you? I'm not talking about the one who tried his best, who done everything he had to do. I'm talking about the one who just left him in this very righteous country of ours and thought he's going to become righteous just out of the blue. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, sometimes it shocks me. It amazes me actually. Not in a good way, but it amazes me how ignorant and naive some parents can be. What do you think your kids are getting up to in this country? That phone that you give them in their room, that TV, that internet. What do you think they're getting up to? My dear brothers in Islam, males love females. That's all there is to it. There's no two ways about it. He could be married to 99 women and he'll still want number 100. Even if that number 100 is not even as nice as the rest of his wives. Even if he had to lose his family to get it. Allah Azza wa Jal created man with that weakness. And Allah Azza wa Jal created the woman in dire need of love, of attention. And she's going to seek it out no matter where it is. It's that simple. Even if she has to give up her family, even if she has to give up her best friend, we've all seen it, best friends since kindergarten. As soon as a guy gets in the mosques, they'll kill each other for him. That's what Allah Azza wa Jal created us with. Why are we so naive and foolish that we can't see that when we put them in these situations and let them watch these things, we're not pouring fuel on the fire? How can we not see it? It amazes me how we can't see it, or we don't want to see it. My dear brothers in Islam and sisters, I remember one of the boys back in the days used to say a story of how the tank for the petrol tank finished that was filling up the lawnmower with, and when he came to fill it up, he looked in it and he saw just a tiny bit of petrol. So he thought to himself, let's see, does it really explode like in the movies? So he grabs a match, he pulls his head back away from the bucket a little bit, and he throws the match in. And obviously it exploded, and the fire came out because it's got nowhere to come out of except from the little hole that's at the top, and he burnt his eyebrows. Sort of a stupid story. But how is it different to us throwing our kids in those situations? How is it different to us pouring fuel on the fire to those emotions and those desires and those weaknesses of our children? Have we no mercy towards our children? My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, studies have shown that there is a direct link between these movies and these episodes and these things that our kids are watching, all this social media, and divorce rates amongst the men and women. See, when you put a girl in front of music her entire life, especially love music, and all these episodes and all these movies, she puts in her head a standard. She thinks that's how it really is. And then when marriage comes along, she realizes that's not how it is. She can't cope with the reality, and hence 70 and 80% divorce rates. Who's at fault for that? That's the question I want to ask. Who's at fault for not teaching her the right thing in the first place, and then allowing her and allowing him into those situations? Is it not the father and mother? Are we not questionable on the Day of Judgment for these actions, or lack thereof? My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I want to touch on a very important point here. Islam is submission, right? Who knows why we submit? Why do we submit to Allah Azza wa Jal? Why don't we just do like the West? Trial and error. Whatever works, works in their perspective, and whatever doesn't, they don't apply it. Why do we submit to Allah Azza wa Jal? Who can tell me? Everyone's shy. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we submit to Allah Azza wa Jal because everyone differs in knowledge, everyone differs in understanding, everyone differs in their wisdom, and everyone differs in their vision for the future. Some people are very good in looking ahead, planning. They're very good at chess. They know the next 5, 10, 15, 20 moves. Others are weaker. No one has complete understanding of everything. No one has complete knowledge. There's always somewhere that is lacking. Our minds are always limited. And hence no one has absolute vision. No one knows the future. You don't know exactly where this thing is going to lead, and maybe we're not capable of knowing where this thing is going to lead. That's why when Allah Azza wa Jal tells us to do something, we do it because He knows that which we do not. Because He sees the future. Because He knows what this will lead to. Something with which some of them, the smartest men in the world won't be able to know. That's why we submit, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. That's why we have to submit to everything Allah Azza wa Jal orders. Even little things, like not mixing and laughing and joking with the opposite gender. Like not watching things that are haram and listening to things that are haram, because we may think they're small. But if they weren't the cause of major catastrophe in our ummah, Allah Azza wa Jalla wouldn't have made it haram. That's why we submit, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. But the fact of the matter is today that we submit to what we want to submit to, and the rest we throw it aside as if we know better than Allah. As if we know better than Allah, we pick and choose from His deen what pleases us. Every action has a consequence, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. Even something as simple as a sunnah, like eating a third, drinking a third, and leaving a third for air. Isn't obesity one of the biggest problems in the 21st century? Cholesterol, diabetes, heart problems. Isn't that all from overweight? If we just applied that simple sunnah, wouldn't that solve major problems in our society? My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we have to submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. Every single action or decision that we make that goes against what Allah teaches has repercussions. It has consequences. And my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, this goes back to before the child is even born. Before the child is even born, we're held accountable for our children. How does that work? Who knows the first right of a child on his father? Who can tell me the first right, as Umar radiallahu anhu narrates? Anyone?
Giving him a good name.
The first one, that's the second.
Thinking about his mother.
Thank you very much. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, you could not have a child for 10 years in your marriage, but still from the day you chose that mother, you're held accountable for that child. If you went for looks instead of deen, so she raised him bad, you're held accountable. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, children, even in the West here, they've said that their brains are like sponges. Every single action we do, they absorb. Every single word we say. My dear brothers, you're talking about a newly born child who knows absolutely nothing. Yet within a year and a half, he's learned the whole language. He doesn't even understand. He does not comprehend. He doesn't know how to give and take. Yet he memorizes an entire language just from hearing us listen to it, just from hearing us speaking it. Allahu Akbar. Imagine the ability of that brain to absorb. My dear brothers, an entire language. If me and you now sat here for the next 10 years listening to someone speak Chinese or Mandarin, would we learn it? No way. My dear brothers, a newly born child, this big, his brain is so powerful that within a year and a half he absorbs an entire language. How can we think that this child is not absorbing as well the bad things we do? Every time we get angry and we swear, you think that child isn't memorizing. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ one day, he was lying down in the house of Fatima. And Fatima radiallahu anha, she was calling her son, and he wasn't listening to her. So she put her hand in her pocket, and she says, "Come here and I'll give you this." The Prophet ﷺ was lying down, he sat up, and he said, "Ya Fatima, do you have something in your hand?" She said, "Yes, Ya Rasulullah." He said, "If you didn't, you would have lied, and you would have taught him how to lie." Allahu Akbar. Look how simple and dangerous it is. That simple action, if you joked just to get him to come to you, the Prophet ﷺ told her, you would have lied, it would have been written down as a lie, and you would have taught him how to lie. Allahu Akbar. What are we exposing our kids to? The subconscious is a very, very powerful thing, my dear brothers and sisters. See, I had a friend once who used to sleepwalk down to the corner shop. He used to leave, get his bed, out of his room, go out of the house, open the door out of the house, go down to the corner shop. And the guy at the corner shop would call his father and tell him to come and take your son, he's sleepwalking again. But if he would try to just walk around his room with his eyes closed, would he be able to do it? He wouldn't. The subconscious is very, very, very powerful. It makes up who we are, depending on the influences and the things he absorbed and learned. We could never do it with our eyes closed, but we'll do it 1,000,000 times through the memory of our subconscious. So my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, when we put our children in front of this TV, what's it teaching them? What are they absorbing? You don't have to look ahead, look at society. How is society functioning today? What is it made up of? What does it consist of? My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, they even teach us what to wish and dream for. They even teach us what to wish and dream for. Oh, fill out this form or send this message and you win the dream prize. What is it? TVs, PlayStations, cars, holidays to here and there. They're teaching us what to want, what to love, what to dream for, what to strive towards. When in our deen, it's بَلْ يُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. We're not supposed to strive for this dunya. We're supposed to strive for the akhirah. We're not made for this dunya. We're not here to dream for this dunya. Our dream is to be with the Prophet ﷺ on the Day of Judgment, to be in the highest of paradises. But we aren't teaching our kids this through action before words, and we're exposing to them to this day and night. Where are they going to be guided from? Where's the guidance going to come from? My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, very simple question. How can you expect your kids to be guided if day in and day out they're learning nothing but filth? And there's nothing to confront it of Islamic teachings. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, violence, sex, incest, nudity, feminism, disobedience to parents. It's in every single film. It's in every single cartoon. I want to understand something. Why is it that in every single cartoon that's made for kids, do the parents end up being wrong? See, the child is ordered to do something or not to do something by his parents. Finding Nemo, the perfect example. The little fish disobeys his father, gets caught. His father goes across the whole ocean to save his son, and then when he finds him, Habibi, and that's it, all ended. I was wrong, I should have let you have your freedom. Why are they always wrong? See, if the West didn't want people to have parents and didn't want guidance from their parents, they wouldn't have had parental guidance, they wouldn't have the legal right of a child and a parent to raise their kids. Ila akhirih. Why in these movies are our children always taught that disobey your parents, and not only at the end is nothing going to happen, but you're going to be right. They're going to come and hug you and tell you to live your life as you wish at the end. Why? Because in essence, the absolute first and last influence on a child should be his parents. So if we get them out of the picture, if we stop them from teaching their children the right thing, then we can do whatever we please with them. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, that's not even to mention the kufr, the belief in powers and gods and idols other than Allah Azza wa Jal that they watch. See, I have a friend right now who used to play so many games, watch so many movies and episodes and cartoons and all that stuff. He doesn't know what to believe anymore. He actually asks you, what's the point of it all? He's so mixed, so confused. Allah and His Prophet are just another story that he used to watch or play on the game. Allah Alam if you're still Muslim with those sort of doubts. So what's our job, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam? What's our job? Allah Azza wa Jal tells us through the Prophet ﷺ that كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every single one of you is a shepherd, and every shepherd is responsible for his herd. If I'm the shepherd, then my family and children, my wife and children, are my herd. What's my responsibility? My number one responsibility in this world. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Oh, you who believe, if you really believe that one day you'll be judged for this amana, this trust that Allah gave you, this child. Oh, you who believe, if you really believe, save yourself and your family, your children, from hellfire. نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة. Allahu Akbar. May Allah protect us all. A fire whose fuel is men and stone. Allahu Akbar. My dear brothers and sisters, can you imagine yourself being fuel for hellfire? Or your children? Can you even picture it? Our number one job, oh you who believe, if you really believe that you will be asked and questioned about this amana, this trust Allah gave you, this child, save yourself and your children, your family, from hellfire whose fuel is men and stone. عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد. Appointed over it are angels, stern and severe. Stern and severe. What's their job? لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم. These angels do not flinch from executing the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal the second they receive it. And then Allah repeats again, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. But do precisely what they are commanded. Allah doubles here. He repeats twice. They don't flinch to perform the command of Allah when it is given to them, and they perform exactly what Allah orders them to do. No mercy on that day. That's our number one job, to save ourselves and our families from hellfire. How? The question pops up. How? What's a practical step to save ourselves and our families from hellfire? One is very simple. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Qur'an, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. And enjoin, order your family to perform the prayer. And be persistent and consistent in ordering to do this. Never let them stop their prayer. SubhanAllah, how prayer always pops up number one. لا نسألك رزقا نحن نرزقك والعاقبة للتقوى. SubhanAllah, look at this verse, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. We do not ask you for sustenance, for money, for wealth. We're not asking you to go work and make money. We're not asking you for sustenance. We will provide it for you and them. And verily the hereafter is for righteousness. My dear brothers, almost every single Muslim alive today is performing the exact opposite to this ayah. It's a bold statement, especially for people that are regulars of the mosque. Most of the Muslims alive today do the exact opposite to the number one order from Allah to be able to protect our families from hellfire. What's the number one reason? Why didn't you come to the lesson or to the mosque? I was at work. I was busy. Allah's telling you, I'm not asking you to go work. Whether you sat at home or you work, your provision is going to get to you. And you're not providing for your children, we're providing for you and them. That doesn't mean don't go work, but what should be number one? Guiding our families on the right path, making sure they're praying their prayers, their deen, their akhirah. But everyone's got it upside down. Everyone's flipped it the other way around. If I'm free, I'll come down to the mosque. If I'm not too sleepy, I'll get up for Fajr and wake up my family. If I'm too sleepy, me and my whole family miss it. That's the number one. The salah. We said the first right of a father on his child is what? Of a child on his father, sorry? Choosing a righteous wife. My dear brothers in Islam and sisters, hear me out for a second. Who knows what the greatest gift Allah could give you in this world is? Of the dunya. Who can tell me?
Islam.
A child.
Of the dunya.
Righteous wife.
Sorry?
Righteous wife.
Righteous wife. Did you know that? See, there's an ayah in the Qur'an, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, give us in this world good, and in the akhirah good, and save us from hellfire. One of the scholars, famous scholars of Islam, his daughter was righteous. And she came and asked him one day, "Oh father, in the akhirah what is good we know? The Jannah and the Prophet ﷺ and being able to see Allah Azza wa Jal. And being saved from hellfire, we also know what it is. But what's good in this dunya? What's the good that we're asking for in this dunya?" He told her, a righteous wife. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, an evil wife can break you, no matter how righteous you are. An evil wife will misguide you and your children. My dear brothers and sisters, that simple decision you made to choose that wife or that husband, that one singular decision is going to decide paradise or hellfire for you. That one single simple decision that we take lightly. So the first right of a child on his father is to choose a righteous wife. And for the mother is to choose a righteous husband. The second is to give him a good name. Not the names that are coming out today that we call them, copying the kuffar, not realizing that these have meanings. These may mean very bad things like other idols. Just recently, my sister-in-law overseas wanted to call her daughter something, not a non-Islamic name, and we realized it was some German god or something like that. And hundreds of Muslims have called their daughters that name. A righteous name, a good name. The third right of a child on his father or his parents is for them to make dua and pray tahajjud for him. To make dua and pray tahajjud for their children. Billah alaykum. Do you know anyone that does this? Anyone? Allah Azza wa Jal protected that man's children in Surah Al-Kahf. Why? When he got Khidr and Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam to build the wall. وَأَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. He was righteous, he used to pray the nights. Do you know what some of the scholars said? That these children that Allah wanted to protect came after 5 generations. Because of the righteousness of their great grandfather, Allah 5 generations later looked after them. See, the scholars used to say, one of the scholars used to say to his son, he goes, "Oh my son, I have increased my nightly prayers, my tahajjud and my dua, so Allah can guide you." Who does that anymore? Allah Azza wa Jal is there. And the last third, do you have a misguided son? Allah is there, He's telling you, ask me and I'll give you. But we don't care enough. We don't care enough for our children, for our akhirah. There's a problem in our iman. It's not translating into action. That's number 3 or 4? Number 3. The third one that Umar radiallahu anhu said, so choosing a good mother. The second was a good name. The third, the tahajjud wasn't the words of Umar radiallahu anhu, but this fourth one was the words of Umar, was to teach him the Qur'an. I'm not talking about sitting there and memorizing and he doesn't even know what he's saying. Teach him the understanding of Islam through the Qur'an, through the ahadith. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, take it from me. It is wajib on every single father and mother to sit down and teach their children every single day. Wajib. That means the one who does not do it is in sin. I believe this from the bottom of my heart. See, there's a qaida in Islam, there's a qaida in the Sharia, a base rule that states ما لا يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. That which cannot be performed, the wajib that cannot be performed except by doing something else, that something else is also wajib. Example, can we pray without wudu? Yes or no? No. So prayer is wajib, and we can't pray without wudu, so that makes wudu also wajib. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, our children are leaving the house every morning. They're learning filth from school, from their friends, from their teachers, from the street, from the billboards, from the radio. They come home and they learn it from the TV, from their computer, from their laptop, from their iPad, from their phone. The worst of things they experience right under our household, right under our roofs, in their room, in our rooms. She could be, or he could be sitting right next to me, and you don't even know what he's doing on his phone. That's a big problem. And then on top of that, you don't want to teach them any good whatsoever. Where's the guidance going to come from? Can I plant a seed outside and just leave it and expect a tree? I'm cold, I'm feeling cold. Can I go buy clothes and then just don't wear it? Would I get warm? Where's the guidance going to come from? Every single day, our children are exposed to the worst of things 23 hours a day. We have them for that 1 hour in the afternoon or at night before we sleep. What do? We turn the TV on and we indulge in the filth with them. What are we watching? News? That's the number one example. Watching news. Brother, you're not going to change the world. Change yourself first. You've been watching news for 20, 30 years, you haven't done anything. Attend to yourself and your family. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, if we don't train, teach, guide, befriend, be there for our children every single day to tackle the problems of today's society, which are very, 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 very many. Our parents did not even dream. They did not even dream of the things our children are tackling today. They couldn't even comprehend that this would happen. And you all know what I'm talking about. If we do not, on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, be there for them whenever they need, teach them every single day, they're going to be simply put a product of society. What's today's society? Drugs, sex, alcohol. And you name it. They're going to be a product of this society. They're going to be normal. What's normal today? Normal today is zina. Abnormal today is someone who doesn't commit zina. He's weird. He's a loser. He's strange. I remember from one of my best friends, years after we grew up and I came to the deen. He told me with his own mouth, we used to try to corrupt you. Imagine that from one of your best friends who you spent almost every day with. With his own mouth, he told me we used to try to corrupt you. If we leave our children, they're going to be a product of this society. They're going to be normal, which is drugs, which is alcohol, which is sex, which is, you name it. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I'm gonna say something. I hope no one gets upset. But it really, really ticks me off. It's been happening for years, and I just want to mention it. Have you ever heard a parent say, "Oh, my son wouldn't do that. I didn't raise him like that. He would never do that. That's not what I taught him." That really ticks me off, that sentence. It actually happened to me recently in Lebanon, maybe a year and a half ago. A father's child did something, and he's a neighbor. So I thought, and he's my neighbor, I could easily go speak to him. Went up to him and told him, "Look, your son did 1, 2, 3. No, my son wouldn't do that. That's not how I raised him. That's not what I taught him. That's not..." Mind you, he never taught him anything. As most of our parents. But why are we so close-minded? Why is everything black and white to us? Does it have to be either good or bad? Can't someone make a mistake and still be good? It doesn't. It's arrogance. It's pride. It's being naive and ignorant. I don't understand. So if you didn't raise him like that, if you actually did raise him, and you didn't teach him like that, if you actually taught him something, then he's infallible? He never makes a mistake? Back in the days, they used to be happy when someone would tell them, "My son did this or that," because he'd be able to fix the problem before it gets bigger. Now if you say something to his son, he'll come and fight you. That sentence really gets to me. You know, if you hear someone say that, ask him, "Oh yeah, what have you taught your son? What have you taught your daughter?" They'll start to stutter. That's not what you taught him. That's not the matters you taught him. Tell me the last time you sat down and you had a lesson, or you had a little discussion about the manners of Rasulullah. He won't even remember the last time he did it. How can you claim that's not what you taught him? That's not how you raised him. When was the last time you read the seerah of Rasulullah so you can know the morals and values of Islam? But yet you can easily say, "That's not what I taught him." That's right, you never taught him anything. When was the last time you sat down and read the stories of the prophets or the companions? How they strove and they sacrificed for me and you to say La ilaha illallah. He doesn't have that book in his house. But he can sit there and claim, "That's not how I raised him." It's like that father that came to the teacher in one of my teachers in Lebanon. He had a child who was facing the problem of pornography and masturbation and all that stuff, and he was helping him for a year or 2 or 3. So in like year 10, this issue popped up in Tarbiyah Islamiyya, one of the classes, the Islamic classes, what the ruling is and how you deal with it and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, the next day, the father of that child comes complaining to the school that teacher opened up these topics to my son. Astaghfirullah, how naive can you be? You know what he said? You know what his argument was? "My son never leaves the house, he doesn't go anywhere, he just sits in his room and studies on his computer." How foolish can we be? How ignorant can we be? It's easy to say, "Oh, not my son, it won't happen to me." Everyone says that. But at the end of the day, we don't want to have evil intentions towards people, but we can't be stupid. We've got to be awake, aware. We've got to be on the ball for our children. Doesn't seem wrong that he's sitting in his room 24/7 studying? And who can do that? He's so convinced that his son is an angel that he's coming and arguing with the school. That means, you know what this guy is? This guy is the perfect example of that father who teaches his son, "Oh, my son, that we mentioned 2 weeks ago, get into this course, study at this university, get this job, you'll start making money and you'll be happy." Say, if he had any deen or iman in him, He wouldn't leave his son studying 24/7 in the room in the first place. There's time for salah, there's time for Qur'an, there's time for lessons, there's time for the mosque. This guy is the perfect example of study this and do that and you'll make money and you'll be successful and you'll be happy. So this guy is already betraying the trust Allah gave him. Who said if he made money he's going to be happy? Who said if he made money he's going to be successful? Who said if he got that job he's going to be happy? What if he gets that job and he makes money and he gets a sickness? If he had billions of dollars and he couldn't see, wouldn't he give it all up to see with one eye? What if Allah Azza wa Jal gives him a non-righteous wife? Arguments all day, fights all day, no sleep, then the courts, then the custody battles for the children, then the taking of all his wealth. What if he was studying 24/7 in his room? Let's say he was, to get that degree and to make that money and be happy. But halfway through his course he dies. How is that going to help him in his grave? What did that girl scream out to her father? You never put me through a good uni? What did she scream out to him? He never used to wake up for Fajr. That was the first thing. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, it's up to you. All we can do is advise. I was running the kids program here in the center from when I was 18. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, wallahi, so I'm not lying. I don't want to say 90%, I don't want to say 80%. I'm going to say most of the times the problems that are happening with the kids was because of their parents. See, if they had just the absolute minute amount of care given to them, that'd be the best of people. But he comes here and he gets encouraged and listens to a talk and he wants to start his prayers and he wants to stay away from this and from that, but at home fighting and arguing, no one ever prays, smoking and argila, and he goes and comes, no one asks where he's going. How is he going to control himself? He's a kid. What's the difference between a child and a man? Only one difference. Only one difference, which is the reason why Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't judge a child, but an adult is accountable for his actions. The only one difference is because a child, even if he knows the right and wrong, see that in Islam there is a walad mumayyaz, there is a child who can differentiate. This is the child that's above 7, 8 years old. He knows what's right and wrong. He knows he shouldn't do this. So it's not differentiating between right and wrong. That's the difference between an adult and a child. The only difference is that before puberty, that child cannot control himself. And after puberty, when he turns into adolescence and into an adult, he can control himself, but he will choose not to. That's the only difference, self-control. The only difference between a child and a man making him not accountable and him accountable is self-control. How do you expect this child, this teenager, who's on the verge of puberty just before or just after, to control himself? You need to be there. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, again I say most of the time, it's the parents. I don't want to say 90% or 80%. Most of the time. So my dear brothers and sisters, it's up to you. You can raise your child, put the time and the effort, be there for him, and you might get a child, you might, still not certain, you might get a child like the 11-year-old who when his father was dying, everyone was going crazy and screaming and crying, and he was standing on the top of his father's head saying, Say la ilaha illallah. Say la ilaha illallah. Say la ilaha illallah. And when his father died, he was always in dua, Rabbi ighfirli wa li walidayyi, Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Or you can choose to neglect them. Your work is too important. Your business is too important. I don't know if you're working to live or living to work, I don't know. And you might get a child like that child who got addicted to drugs, done everything in the books to make money to get his drugs, and then when every opportunity was gone, was wasted, just a simple word from his friend, isn't your dad loaded? Get rid of him and you inherit his wealth and you can buy as much drugs as you want. That's all it took. That's all it took, my dear brothers and sisters. That's all it took. He went and he tried to poison his father slowly. It didn't work. He went to hospital. They gave him certain medicines. One of it was an eye drop. He went and put poison in that eye drop. He put a bit too much. The father put the eye drop in his eye. It started burning him. He died and they discovered what he had done. And his only regret was, as the police officer was asking him in the car down to the police station, his only regret was that he went to jail without having made that money for the drugs. It wasn't that his father had died. He watched his father screaming and writhing in pain in front of him and didn't care. So my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, protect your kids. Teach them. If you don't know, teach yourself. Get involved in lessons. Get involved in the Sharia classes. Look up information on Google, or Mufti Google as they say. Learn, read, find out about today's problems the shabab and the girls are facing. Be there for your children. Don't come home and watch TV. Sit with your children and speak to them, befriend them. Ask them what they're doing, what's happening on them with their lives, who their friends are, where they're going and coming, what's on their phone. Be there for your children. Protect your children. So that one day we can unite with them in Jannah. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us listen and apply the best of what He said. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to guide us and our children on His straight path. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to guide us and give us the strength and wisdom to raise our children on Iman. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us and our children of the righteous and unite us in al-Firdaus al-A'la. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
We are one ummah who should stand with each other through all the highs and lows.